Sinister Intent is a true crime channel that showcases crimes committed by some of the worst human beings on the planet. These stories are often told in graphic detail. Viewer discretion is advised. 10-year-old Zahra Baker was described as a sweet girl with a bubbly personality that looked for the best in people. She was a two-time cancer survivor in her short time on this earth, and even though she beat cancer twice, the cost of her victories were the loss of one of her legs above the knee, partial loss of tissue in one of her lungs, and the loss of her hearing due to the negative effects of chemotherapy. Guys, today we talk about the sad story of Zahra Baker, whose life got flipped upside down and turned in a negative way prior to her life in Australia before moving to America after her father, Adam Baker, met this woman here, Elisa Baker, and things would never be the same. I'm Steve, your host, and this is Sinister Intent.
Get a little bit of gasoline. Welcome to another crime scene. Get a little bit of gasoline. Welcome to another crime scene.
Police believe the 10-year-old cancer survivor who wore a prosthetic leg and hearing aids was killed by her American stepmother.
Baker admitted killing Zara and writing a fake ransom note. She also pleaded guilty to 8 other charges, including obstruction of justice, 4 counts of obtaining property by false pretenses, 2 counts of identity fraud, and bigamy. Baker also admitted to aggravating factors in the case, including delaying the search, desecration of a body, and physical, verbal, and psychological abuse towards Zara.
Police have only recovered parts of Zara's body and may never know just how she died.
Guys, things that we go through in life from our infancy all the way up into adulthood, moving forward in life, makes us who we are. Now, this story right here involves the death of a 10-year-old girl who died brutally. Everybody knows the story of Zahra Baker, but to really get a hold of this story and like really take it to where it needs to go, we got to go back to the beginning, and that's Alyssa Fairchild, or Elisa Baker as she's known, when she was locked up after taking the life of Zahra Baker. So I'm going to talk a little bit about her and what led her all the way up to the time of meeting Adam Baker in Australia. Take a look. Elisa Baker was born June 6 of 1968 in the state of North Carolina. She had 2 siblings and had both parents in her life. As a child, she was referred to as Daddy's favorite. You see where we're going with this. Her mother, on the other hand, was referred to as the strict disciplinarian of the family. Once she got into her teenage years, the beginning of the true nature of Elisa would start to come out. Elisa got to the point where she started to talk back to her mother, sometimes swearing, often resulting in her getting a hand across her face. That's just how it was back then. In school, she was referred to as a popular person. Said she was a good dancer, according to fellow classmates that seen her at school dances, so on and so forth. But that didn't matter because at the age of 16, she dropped out of high school. Dropping out of high school, Elisa found herself pregnant with her first child, who she gave birth to, a little girl named Amber. Shortly after that, while walking to a local gas station, she bumped into a classmate, a guy that was crushing on her back in the day, Jerry Winkler, that's his name. She met this guy. He sees she has a baby. They're talking outside the gas station. Both of them are 18 at the time. Elisa gives this guy a sob story about she got pregnant and the guy ran off. What does Jerry Winkler do? He asked her out. A week later, he proposes to her. The deeper we go in this rabbit hole, the more you'll see a certain type of pattern that Elisa Baker had as far as manipulating men, or making it to where people would throw her a pity party, or acting as if she needed some type of validation from anybody around her in order to get attention, to make her be envisioned bigger than she actually is. There are a lot of people out here that are like this, and a lot of us know people that have similar traits to Elisa Baker. A lot of people that have this same trait, they're a dime a dozen. And it always ends the same way, in utter failure and them with egg on their face. But let's continue. All right, guys, the story goes, after he proposed to her, they had to come up with and devise a plan because she has a baby. So what happened? Elisa came up with an elaborate scheme to make this thing happen faster than, it should have. What she does is, her and Jerry, they say, okay, she convinces Jerry, we'll make a fake blood test and you sign and forge your name on it, which he did. They go to his parents and they consent for them to get married. And the year was 1985. September 14th, 1985, then 18-year-old Jerry marries 18-year-old Elisa. About a few weeks into the marriage, he becomes overwhelmed. Here he is, an 18-year-old kid who a girl he liked, he proposed to, rushed through it like a lot of young teenagers doing decisions, dealing with the heart. He gets overwhelmed. I got a baby, I got her to take care of, tremendous responsibility, I'm still young, I don't want this. So what does he do? He goes to his parents and tells them the truth. Hey, the baby's not mine, we falsified the documents, I like her, this ain't working for me. And what do? They go down to the courthouse and quickly get an annulment. Now, after her annulment, nearly a year later, she meets another guy, Joseph Proctor. This guy was an older man that walked with a limp due to a near fatal car crash that he endured before meeting her. And they begin dating. Few months in, she says, oh, I'm pregnant. What does he do? He proposes. And so, September 5th, 1987, they were married. Shortly after that, a son was born. A few months after, Douglas, her second child. First with Mr. Joseph. Now, a year after that, they gave birth to a third child, a little girl named Brittany. And at this time, this is when things started to fall apart. In a marriage that was described as rocky at best, the couple lived in a home owned by Proctor's mother, Levitress White. And in April of 1989, White asked the judge for a restraining order claiming Elisa was stealing and destroying property in the home. According to the mother-in-law, Elisa said, if I have to get out of here, I'll burn the house down. I'm going to kill this baby. Talking about her grandbaby. I'm going to wreck this car. I'll kill those kids. Out of fear, 2 months later, the couple reconciled. Proctor's mother then dropped the complaint. Their divorce wasn't finalized until 1992, but the relationship ended on Christmas Day in 1990 when Elisa walked out. She gained custody of Amber and Brittany, and Douglas went and stayed with his father, Proctor. We come to husband number 3. The year is 1992. A gentleman named Andrew Harris Jr. walks into a bar after a long day at the textile mill, and he sees Elisa, who waves him over. They start talking, conversation gets serious, and this is what happened. Andrew Harris Jr. recalled the first time he ever saw Elisa. He had just walked in to the Tri-County bar after another long shift at the J.P. Stevens textile plant, where she waved at him. We just hit it off, he said. She was easy to talk to. They married a few months later on April 17, 1992. But soon her personality changed. She was often angry, and she took it out on her daughters, Harris said. She yelled and hit them, he said. I say to her, why do you have them in their rooms again? She'd just start mumbling about how she didn't want to deal with them. The truth is, she treated them like dirt, he said. After a fight in early 1994, Harris left the house for a few days. When he returned, it was empty, no furniture, no guns, no fishing rods. There was nothing nice about that woman, he said. All right, guys, so far in the story, you can see this woman, Elisa, is an opportunistic lover. She doesn't care nothing about the people she comes across, doesn't care about building a fruitful marriage. All she cares about is her own personal gain. She doesn't care about her children. It's always about her. Elisa. Which brings us to husband number 4. And if you haven't seen that she's very manipulative and a serial user of people, you'll definitely see it in this marriage right here. In the fall of 1994, a neighbor told Daryl Putnam she had found a perfect woman for him. Putnam was 30 years old and had been deaf nearly his entire life. He can understand speech with his hearing aids on, but his disability made it difficult for him to find dates, said his mother, Margie Putnam. Alyssa and Daryl went to a bar. She told him about her girls, but lied and said her 8-year-old daughter, Amber, had cancer. Within weeks, they moved in together. About this time, Alyssa's birth mother died of cancer, and she had ballooned to more than 300 pounds. I wouldn't see her for days, Daryl Putnam said. At times, using sign language as his mother interpreted, she would go out and get drunk and carry on. She was never home. Worse, when she was there, she would smack around her children, Putnam said. They married February 4th, 1995, but their relationship quickly disintegrated. One day after work, Putnam found her in bed with another man. He walked to his mother's house and returned a few days later. Everything was gone, including his expensive hearing aids. All he wanted was a family, Margie Putnam said. He loved those girls. He stayed with her because of those girls. But in the end, she broke his heart. She was pure evil. Guys, let's put everything in perspective so far. She marries this dude, Daryl Putnam, that needed hearing aids and was deaf, right? Opportunistic. Prior to that, she met him months after leaving and cleaning out Andrew Harris Jr. They wasn't even divorced. And here she goes and marries another guy. It makes no sense. This woman don't care about nothing but herself. We stated that before. Guy said he stayed with her because of the kids. And even that wasn't enough. Guy already had things he had to deal with. You know, his deafness and insecurities within himself. She exploited them, took what she could from him, and then in one final blow with being upset with him and feeling like she's better than him, like she feels like she's better than most of these people that she came across, she finished a curtain called One Vile Act. You took the man's expensive hearing aids. Trifling. All right, guys, now we come to husband number 5, a man named Jeffrey Allred. This guy is 6'2", 260 pounds. But that wasn't enough to stop Alyssa from intimidating and abusing him as well. Here's his story. Jerry Allred remembers with a shudder the last time he saw Alyssa in the spring of 1998. She had put her daughters in the car and headed to Walmart for groceries. When the taillights receded in the night, he pulled a packed suitcase from a bedroom closet, jumped in his truck, and headed in the opposite direction. I couldn't take the abuse anymore, said the 6'2" Allred, who weighs 260 pounds. He said she beat him with a baseball bat and threw rocks at him. He was so spooked that he never divorced her. He was too afraid he might see her in court. The relationship didn't start out that way. There were nights when they would drive around the upscale neighborhoods of Hickory, and she would tell him her dream was to live in one of those grand houses. They married October 3rd, 1997, and then she changed. It was like a light switch went off, and she said, "I got him now," he said. Guys, that was husband number 6. Mr. Allred ran and for the hills and never looked back. He was scared to divorce her because he didn't want to see her in court. She attacked him with a baseball bat, threw rocks at him, other craziness. And you know, when a guy meets a woman and they come off sweet and stuff, that's a big deal for a guy. Guys like women they can get along with. And she's a perfect actor for playing that role in different situations to get men to get entangled into her web. But once the mask comes off, the real Elisa shows. Now I'm gonna tell you something real quick before we go to husband number 6. This woman is still married to husband number 3, it was. So you done went through 4 and 5, and now we're going to 6. Let's keep going. Husband number 6, Aaron Young, who met Elisa while she was still married to Allred, picked up the pieces. It was the first time a woman had paid attention to him. As a child, he had rickets, a bone disease often caused by poor nutrition that could cause skeletal deformities. He had several operations on his left leg, and there was a steel rod in the other, a condition that made him self-conscious and very shy. The couple were married August 8, 1998. She was 30, he was 20. He was a very responsible kid, said Young's brother James. When he married her, he grew up overnight. He took being married very seriously and was a stable influence in those children's lives. It was during the marriage that Elisa discovered the internet. She would spend long hours in front of a computer. She got tattoos, changed her hair color from blonde to black with fire engine red streaks. Aaron's young mother spotted her kissing another man in a car in 2007, and her 6th marriage ended quickly. You know, guys, after looking at some facts about the life of Elisa Baker, leading her up to meeting Adam Baker in Australia, I see why this is one of the most hated women in American history. It makes no sense to use people. The guy had a skeletal deformity, and she still used him till she used him up. It makes no sense. She's abusive, uses her children to play on the heartstrings of men. Men come into her life and do well by her and the kids, and they still wind up being abused and chewed up and spit out. Now, this is the meat and potatoes of the story. This is when Elisa Baker, now age 40, comes across Adam Baker in Australia through the internet, and then ultimately comes in contact with Zahra Baker. All right, folks, the year is 2008, and Elisa, age 40, has met Adam Baker, age 30. And before I go on with this, let me note some stuff for you to show you how scatterbrained this chick is and irresponsible. She's already been married 6 times, right? She's married to multiple men at the same time as she meets Sam Baker in Australia. Do you know this woman has 42 previous addresses in a 7-year period? Just something to think about. And here she is wanting to get married again, this time overseas, to a man from Australia. The first time Adam Baker saw his future wife in person was at the airport. They had met through Instant Messaging Virtual Universe, a website where users create 3-dimensional characters to represent themselves using their avatars to interact in a virtual world. He was 33, she was 40. The couple lived with Adam Baker's mother in Gairu, in the southern part of Australia, but his friends and family had their doubts. Her story seemed very outrageous. We kept wondering, what is she doing here, said Kim Wright, a family friend. Wright had become something of a surrogate mother to Zara, whose biological mother left when she was a baby. They were married in his family's backyard, July 8, 2008. A few months later, Adam Baker told his mother he was moving to the U.S. His family was worried. In Australia, Zara's medical treatments were free. But Adam Baker told his friends and family Elisa Baker had money and would take care of the bills, Wright said. By now, Zara was using a prosthetic leg, and chemotherapy left her partially deaf, forcing her to use hearing aids. Hey guys, Elisa's now married to Adam Baker, and things are looking up, but she wants to go back to the United States. Part of the reason why I think she wanted to go back to the United States, I think, was her plan originally. Now, you remember, her kids are grown now, so she could have up and left and stayed out there in Australia. That's what made it possible for her to trip. She ain't got nobody to answer to. She goes out there. She meets a guy 7 years younger than her. He's 33, she's 40. go out there with all these elaborate lies, talking about she's this, she's that. Real recognize real. People look through a lot of the masks she was trying to wear. People was figuring things out. They asked questions. This guy, Adam, is blinded by love. Delusions of grandeur. He met on a place where they show avatars to represent who they actually look like until they both meet each other. And I guess they was pleased with what they saw. Either way, they got married in his family's backyard, quick as can be. And she had to be spitting some serious game and lies to this guy to convince him, whose daughter the cancer just went into remission months before, to up and leave where she has free medical and she's surrounded by family that love her and her support system is in Australia. How selfish can you be as a person? That's the thing. When a woman meets a man and they connect, she came over there. You go where the man goes if he's the leader that you pick in life. I don't know what she was doing to these guys, man, but like if you look, I mean, besides some of them having disabilities and probably feeling inferior, you know, within themselves, she is like really chewing people up, man. Now look, they come to the States, right? Now she telling everybody, oh, don't worry about it. I got money. She's telling this elaborate lie. He believing it. He telling the folks to take the fears off of them, and they up and move from Australia back to North Carolina. And this is what happens next. Okay, guys, late 2008, they moved back from Australia to Hickory, North Carolina, which is Alyssa's hometown. They go and live in a trailer with her father, the one that supposedly gave her all this attention when she was a kid. And evidently it must have contributed to her feeling as though she can manipulate men that she comes across. But anyway, she moved in with her father, right? Now it's her, Adam, and little Zara. Zara was loving America. She liked making new friends, talking about her experiences in Australia in comparison to her life in America. And this lasted, what, 6 months? So after about 6 months, because of Adam's immigration status, he couldn't work. So now you come home from Australia with a husband, a handicapped child that needs special needs, you know, special care, and everything you said about you having money and all this other stuff was an elaborate lie. And what's crazy about this, even though Zara liked America, guys, she still needed treatment and she wasn't getting it, you know, because Alyssa didn't have no money. Big liar. Now you got two people over here trapped, dealing with her, trying to make their own way. The husband, the breadwinner, can't work, and everything's left up to her. Now, a lot of times when you see these people that have dominant personalities and a hint of like sneakiness to them, one of the main tools they use is isolation, getting you away from people that can see through their disguise to where you can only focus on them, or putting you in a position where they're needed in, you know, an important way. This is a perfect example of that. I think this was all her plan moving forward. And like I was saying, fast forward 6 months with them being in the United States, Alyssa's father has had enough, primarily with the way Zara was treated. So what did he do? He told them they had to get out, and they left. Now we come to 2009, where Alyssa and Adam scraped up some enough money to get an apartment in a place called Granite Falls, North Carolina. Now this move to Granite Hills, North Carolina, began to be the beginning and the end for young Zahra Baker, especially with the mistreatment that she went through, be it physical, emotional, and mental. Neighbors would recall hearing extreme verbal arguments coming from the home that also sounded violent. Neighbors would go on to say that they would hear noises in the ceiling. They dismiss it as an animal. Come to find out later on, they had Zara sleeping in the attic. She was made to sleep up in the attic with nothing more than a sheet on the floor. Fast forward to 2010. Now, Alyssa and Adam get kicked out of their apartment in Granite Falls, North Carolina for not paying rent. Why are we not surprised? They then go and move to a trailer in Hudson, North Carolina, and they begin staying there. Now, one bright thing about the situation is now Adam has got a job as an arborist, somebody that cuts down trees, and he's getting paid under the table. So that takes some of the stress off, I guess, Elisa. But the downside to that is the man has to work long hours, thus leaving his daughter, now 10 years old, you know, Zahra Baker, in the presence of Elisa without him there. All right, guys, before we go into the abuse of Zahra Baker at the hands of Elisa Baker, I want to make a point clear. Now, she met this man, Adam, on the internet. Do you know when she went over there and met him, she didn't mention any of her other husbands. So basically, she acted as if she never been married, didn't tell him nothing about her past, just came with this fictitious lies and stories of how great she is, a person, and why she's the #1 candidate for him to take her hand in marriage. Now, being that this man is working a lot, right? And, you know, not in the house, like I said, more time has to be spent with Elisa taking care of Zara. Now, Zara now has to rely on Elisa, who's her primary caregiver, because this guy is working long hours and not in the house. Thus, the exposure and all of the frustrations and anger and evil that's in this woman, you'll start to come out in the way she treated little Zara. Little Zara made a lot of friends while she was out here in America. Even though they moved a few places, she never had a problem being friendly, making friends, whether it was in school or in the neighborhood. And, you know, a lot of times when you have a girl, you know, at her age, around other children her age, they ask questions about, hey, you know, why do you have what's wrong with your leg and stuff like that. And, you know, these are questions that she probably have to answer for the rest of her life until she's an adult, where it's inappropriate to ask those type of questions. But I mean, she was comfortable with her situation. She had grown into herself, and, you know, she knew what to say, whether it was humorous, saying something about her leg, or just telling a story, which is the thing. It's her story. Elisa, being the attention seeker that she is, guys, do you know this woman would downplay what she went through in her own struggle with cancer, somewhere she wasn't even a part of, wasn't even there when this happened, but she would downplay it to make it as if to say, oh, she's making it sound worse than it is. She lost part of her lung and she lost a leg. Now, if that's not a fight for survival in the battle of cancer, twice, not once, twice, I don't know what is. Who are you or anybody else to dismiss the struggles somebody went through? Hell, she lost her hearing from chemotherapy, guys. Part of her hearing. As if she had enough to deal with. Elisa started running around telling neighbors and people, because she had to get in on the act, that she had beat brain cancer several times. She had several cancerous lesions taken out of her brain. Now all of a sudden she's a cancer survivor. You see where we going with this? There are always people that want to steal your shine and not know the struggle you went through, only to make themselves bigger than you, and they have no idea what they're talking about. This woman right here has a track record of trying to be the biggest person in the room, all the while making herself look like the stupidest. And it came out later on. Now, I told you, she had went through a lot of psychological, physical, and emotional abuse. This is one such time. According to neighbors, now all this is out. According to reports, Elisa would tell little Zara, oh, your leg shouldn't stop you from You're no different than anybody else just because your leg is not real and stuff like that. And would have this girl running up and down a hill, supposedly on the property or near the property. And she had to run in a timed manner up and down a hill. She used it as a form of humiliating punishment to this girl. If the girl did not go fast enough, she would hurl objects at her and curse her. People seen this. What type of person are you? She survived cancer, chemotherapy, being tired, still having to move forward. Before she met you, her struggle was real, but it was her struggle. And here you come, reminding her that she ain't got one leg, but that ain't no excuse. You don't know how it feels to be in her position. And then on top of that, you humiliate her by make her run up and down a hill as if she has both of her faculties and nothing's wrong with her. And you expect her to do that as if she's been running and jumping and kicking and moving her whole life with said prosthetic. How cruel is that? As far as inside the house, it got no better for Zara. She would get beat brutally for the smallest things. Say she didn't eat her food, all her food, she would get mollywopped. One time, Alyssa beat Zara in front of her 2 adult daughters who later reported her, which the authorities didn't do anything, which we'll get to that, later on in this story. But she didn't care who she would beat her in front of. Supposedly neighbors said they heard her screaming from the trailer getting beat multiple times. Then she would run around and say, oh, well, Zara did it to herself, or she would say, oh, she fell, and stuff, to explain all of the bruises that she had endured. They said one time she swung to hit Zara, Elisa did, and slipped and hit her prosthetic leg so hard that she broke her own hand. So that right there tells you it's a lot of malice behind those swing she was doing to a 10-year-old girl, guys. That's not her own. Now, I don't know if Adam was in the house or not. I don't know to witness this type of stuff. But the way she was doing it, I'm sure Zara spoke to her father and told him what was going on. Guys, Elisa was so comfortable in brutalizing and physically abusing little Zara that Zara would go to school with bruises all over her body, on her arms, her leg. One time she went to school with 2 black eyes. Now at the school, they kept logs of some of the things that little Zara was coming to school with, like the marks on her body and stuff, and they alerted the authorities. Then again, same thing again, nothing had happened. Now the thing that's crazy about this is, one time Zara came to school and she had so much anxiety that, about something that happened at the house. I guess she didn't want to go home and she was thinking about it. It worked her up so bad at school, guys, she wet her pants. Now she's traumatized because she don't know what's going to happen once it's realized or Elisa's told that she did that. She would immediately make it about her. She was embarrassed. She don't know what would happen to her. So what one of the teachers did was they felt pity on her and they said, listen, this is my number. If anything happens and you need to call me, you call me. Now, I don't know if that's against school regulations, which it probably is, but either way, it pissed off Elisa so much after she found out about it that she did what? She pulled Zara out of school and said she was going to homeschool her. This one single action would spell doom for 10-year-old Zahra Baker. So now we got Zara at the house, supposedly being homeschooled. And I want to make note of something. I mentioned before that DFS, Division of Family Services, or whatever they call it out there in North Carolina, they came to the home 4 separate times and they did nothing. They interviewed both Elisa and Zara together. Then they interviewed them separately and nothing was done. Reason why their excuse was, unless Zara says out of her mouth that Alyssa is abusing her, it's nothing but speculation. How do you figure that out? You would think when people work around children, they look for little tells and body language signals, so on and so forth, you know, that children express, especially with being asked uncomfortable questions in both her and the adult of the person that's supposedly charged or thought of in the abuse. Like they didn't pick up on no tells. I don't understand it. Now I'm gonna tell you something. Children know when you don't like them. And it's hard to deal with, you know, rationale at the mind of a 10-year-old that's getting beat a lot, verbally humiliated, psychologically messed with, and just taken out of her element. Remember, guys, she only been in America, what, a little less than 2 years, and all of this stuff is being piled on her, and she's not getting no help from her father, who says his excuse, who also claims he didn't know nothing about the abuse. His excuse is he's working long hours, but you'll see later on that Adam's an idiot. Fast forward later into the year 2010, Alyssa, Zara, and Adam all moved from the trailer where they're staying to a home, a rented home in Hickory, her hometown, of course, Hickory, North Carolina. The boss of Adam is the landlord of the house that they're renting. Now, getting back to the abuse thing, I think part of this was when things really took the turn and the sinisterness of Elisa really came out, and her vitriol and hate that she had for 10-year-old Zara. This is one of the reasons why I think all of this stuff happened, and it's just me talking. All of this stuff happened to little Zara that I'm about to explain to you because they moved into this new house. Remember, one of the tactics of a person that, you know, abuses people and does mean things to them and don't like them and want to control them and has ill intent, one of the things they do is what? Separation. To get people away from people that can help them. Remember, at the trailer, she had neighbors reported her. Her own kids reported her. The school knew where Zara was at. Being that she was homeschooled, people would have to what? Make checks and stuff. Don't know if that happened or not, but now if she moves away, she gets away from all of that with a new plan to put Zara in isolation, and you'll see it right here. The first 6 to 8 weeks of them living in Adam's boss's home that they were renting, do you guys know that 10-year-old Zahra Baker was never seen by any neighbors? She was literally confined to the house, and as if she was a prisoner or something. Thus the isolation started. Adam didn't care nothing about her, in my opinion, because he was going back and forth to work now that he's really obligated because he has to pay rent to his boss from living in his house, and kept him out of the house more and more, where Elisa had Zara at her will. On October 9th, 2010, Elisa makes a call, a 911 call, reporting a fire in the backyard of the home that they recently started renting from Adam's boss. During the time the firefighters come out and put the fire out, they notice a note on Adam's work vehicle. They go over and inspect it, and it looks to be a ransom note asking Adam's boss for $1 million, claiming that they kidnapped his child. They tell him not to go to the cops in the note, and this is what's discovered out there after this fire is put out. Guys, we get into the part now where it's very confusing. Now, you've seen she made the call early in the morning, right? Supposedly they had mulch piles in the backyard because remember, Adam's boss is an arborist. So they would have piles of mulch and wood laying around. She calls 911 saying the backyard's on fire, which you guys will see in a second. And she's saying all of this stuff. They find this ransom note. It's written to Mr. Coffee, Adam's boss, saying, hey, we got your child. Don't go to the police. We want $1 million. no questions asked, so on and so forth, right? Now police are involved. They call Mr. Coffee. Hey, Mr. Coffee, we found a note on one of the work vehicles. Hey, it's saying that they have your child. Now, Mr. Coffee, he had a daughter too. Let me mention that. Now they say, hey, do they have your child? Mr. Coffee says, no, my daughter's right here. Now, at around 5:30 in the afternoon, right, which was late. Now, early in the morning, she had called the police, right? Zara's been in the house that whole time. Alyssa's called the police and all this other stuff early in the morning. Late in the afternoon, a 911 call comes in from, guess who? Adam Baker and Elisa Baker. Check it out.
For the first time, we're hearing the voice of Zahra Baker's father the night his daughter was reported missing. Today, police in Hickory released the 911 call from October 9th while they continue their search for the 10-year-old. At the house where Zara lived in Hickory, the memorial keeps growing as people wait for answers.
It's tragic that there's no ending to this.
Searches have turned up nothing, and police are still wanting to talk with people who saw Zara. They've had no luck with the next-door neighbors.
In 6 weeks or so that they've been here, I've never seen her.
I never saw her, not one time.
Police released the 911 calls made the day Zara was reported missing. The first at 5:30 a.m. when her stepmother called about a fire.
911, what's the address of your emergency? Yes, ma'am. My husband works for a tree maintenance company, and our backyard's on fire. Your what's on fire? The backyard. We've got big mulch piles and wood piles.
That fire later was classified as arson. Late that same day, Zara's dad called to report her missing. He seemed quite calm as he did.
It's Talbot County 911.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good.
I need police.
Which police?
Hickory.
In that nearly 5-minute call, Adam Baker theorizes that a group of kidnappers who left a ransom note for his boss's daughter had instead taken his daughter, Zara.
There you have it, folks. Now, Zara is missing. She's taken out of the house, supposedly kidnapped, because these kidnappers thought that Mr. Coffee's daughter was Zara. They were supposedly taking Adam's boss's daughter, but got his daughter. This whole thing is confusing. But let's continue. Now Zara's missing. Let's fast forward.
Since the call 10 days ago, police say that Zara's stepmother has admitted to forging that ransom note. She is charged with obstruction of justice, and police are now pursuing the case as a homicide investigation.
Okay, guys, things are starting to come out in this case 10 days into Zara being missing, which she's not found yet. But I want to go back a little bit. Now, according to reports, right, when the police interviewed both of them, because, they're going to overturn, they're not going to leave a stone unturned, they're going to interview the parents. They interview Alyssa, right? She's supposed to have been there when Zara was taken. What she says is the last time she seen Zara was 2:30 a.m. the night before, when she went in the room to check on her. So the kidnappers had to come and take her before the fire in the back. In fact, trying to lead that the fire was a diversion to make her go in the back so these people, these kidnappers, can come in the house, take Zara, and run off without her seeing it. See the game? Another thing she says is this. She says, Alyssa, Zara, and Adam were all together the night before Zara was taken. Now, this is all in front of the police interview, right? They interview Adam in his police interview, and what he says is the last time he seen Zara was 3 days before she went missing, thus contradicting the lie that Alyssa told about Zara and him being together the night before she was taken. More lies. What does this dude do? You know, and like, I mean, I gotta be honest, in his 911 call, if you guys ever get a chance to hear the whole thing, he kind of laughs a couple times in there. You know, like sarcastic laughter. Your daughter's missing, bro. How is this not a time to be laughing? Like I said, this guy right here comes off as an idiot, and I'll continue to show you. Now, this guy runs the sympathy circuit, goes on all these various shows, giving messages for his daughter to come back home and all of this stuff. A girl that has a disability with a prosthetic leg, how far is she gonna walk? Where's she gonna go? What reason would she have to leave? Being that you didn't know about the abuse and all this other stuff, why would she just up and leave her dad in a foreign country? This makes no sense to me. And this goes back to one of the reasons why, you know, not being opinionated, I think he knew more than what he was saying. But let's continue. Okay, now, day 3 into the Zara being missing, because I didn't go over this part. That video I showed you, they showed her going into court. They said 10 days, it's been 10 days since Zara supposedly has been reported missing. Now, what I forgot to add is day 3 of Zara being missing, Alyssa volunteers to take a polygraph test, which she fails miserably. Now, these detectives are trained in, you know, body language and stuff like that, like we said before. They come to her and say, okay, listen, here's the deal. We know you got something to do with it. Tell us the truth. There is no kidnappers, so on and so forth. They're just shooting game at her, but they know she has something to do with it. Because if you paid attention to the video I previously showed you, she was charged with everything except murder. But the crime was seen as a murder. Because, and the reason why they said the crime was seen as a murder, they went to the house. I guess they sprayed luminol and they used the UV light in the room. Come to find out, after Zara, you know, disappeared, the reason why they knew it was a homicide was because when they shined the luminol, sprayed the luminol and they shined the light, they said it was so much blood splatter in the room that, judging by how much blood it was, and it wasn't only blood in the room, it was blood on the ceiling, on the walls. It was also blood in the vehicle. Now, they said it was so much blood that was spilled that they estimated that a 10-year-old girl could not be alive. So they looked at it as a homicide. Zara is now dead, and now it's a manhunt to find her body. Adam, on the other hand, is running around on various newscasts, and he's talking about the situation. He refuses to say that Alyssa has something to do with the disappearance because people are asking him. He refuses to say he knows or anything like that, or he knows anything. He didn't know about anything going on in the house, which I don't believe. But in him telling the story, he recants his statements multiple times in different places when he's talking about this thing, and then comes to find out he didn't see Zara for 15 days. 15 days, guys, before she disappeared. How do you live in a house with your child and don't see your child for 15 days? 10-year-old daughter. How do you not do that? Now, he blamed work. Oh, by the time I come in, I'm working late. Zara's in the bed. I peek in there. She looks like she's sleeping. I leave her alone. Okay. I'm going to take a break real fast and say something. I think the reason why Elisa Baker was able to put her clutches so deeply, her claws so deeply into this little girl with what she did to her and how she resented her and how I think she looked at little Zara as a wedge between her and the freedom to do what she wanted to do with Adam, no matter what it was, that, you know, things happen the way they happen. Another thing is this, guys. As a man, your daughter came from another country with you. You know your kid. How do you feel in your heart that you're not spending quality time with your child knowing she's in the house with a monster? Hell, you can't even get along with her, which makes me think, obviously, he didn't like being in the house, and a lot of the responsibilities he had as a father he turned a blind eye to and put a lot of the responsibility, you know, of spending time with Zara, with Elisa, which turned bad. But Elisa was already a bad person. And trust me, in no way, shape, or form am I defending this woman, because she is evil personified. But I mean, you know how she is. You don't like being around her. Why would you subject your 10-year-old daughter to that type of abuse that was around you, that you had around your kid? Think about that. I really want you to think about that. See, as a kid, if somebody doesn't like you, you try to stay away from them. But when you're a prisoner in your own home and the very warden is the devil, what can you do? This little girl never had a shot. But let's continue with this guy, Adam. I don't respect him. I don't. It makes no sense. Hear me out. It makes no sense that he says he didn't know anything. Do you guys believe that? In the comment section, tell me that if you believe that or not. I don't believe that. What type of interaction was you having with your child? I think none. And this is why it was a green light for Alyssa to do what she did, because she seen that you didn't care. Let's continue. As stupid as Adam is, he's not considered a suspect. Partly because I believe that detectives believe everything he says. His demeanor thus supports the statement that they think Adam is straight up an idiot. Now, going back to Elisa. After Elisa admits or gets busted about the ransom note, they tell her, you know, with the charges that you're facing, with the death of this little girl, you're facing the death penalty. She hears death penalty, and then at that time, this is when Elisa starts to talk. And what she says is crazy. Guys, Elisa Baker, who's a pathological liar, tells the police that 2 weeks before Zara's disappearance, she comes home to find Zara unconscious and she can't wake her up. So what she does, instead of calling the police, she gives Zara CPR for 30 minutes, y'all. 30 minutes. That doesn't work, so she calls who? Adam. She calls Adam. Adam rushes home, and because of his immigration status, he doesn't want to get in any trouble. So what he does, according to what Elisa says, he decides that he's going to pick up Zara from her bed, take her to the bathtub, and dismember her. Then later on, he put the body parts in trash bags in which Adam went to various locations and disposed of the body of his own daughter. Lisa then told this somewhat fabricated story about how her and Adam scattered the body parts of Zahra Baker around town or around the area, right? Now, even though a lot of the stuff she's saying can't be validated, but they have something to go on now. So in the deal that she's offered, instead of her getting first-degree murder, she gets second-degree murder, which she pleaded to, and we'll get to that in a second. But she avoided the death penalty, so now she feels as though she wants to say a little bit more. And with her saying where the body parts and stuff were, the police went out and started looking, and most of Zara's body, according to reports, were eaten by animals. That's hard for me to say. But this is 45 days into her missing, guys, so you got to keep that in consideration too. One of the things that wasn't found when they made their initial search, you know, of body parts that, you know, some were found, some because the animals getting to them, they weren't there no more. Her skull was still missing, right? Now, going back to the crime scene. Remember I said they found the blood splatter and stuff? What Elisa did, right, is she painted the wall. She cleaned up the mess while Adam was at work. She repainted the walls because I guess she couldn't get some of the stains off, so she painted over the stains. And the reason why they found out she painted over the stains was because when she called 911 initially for that mulch fire, that fire, pile of leaves or whatever it was in the backyard, she threw a paintbrush in there and it was found burned up, the remnants of it. Questions needed to be answered, and come to find out, she repainted the room to cover up the crime scene.
The stepmother of murdered Australian girl Zahra Baker will serve at least 14 years in an American jail. In a deal worked out between the district attorney and her lawyer, 43-year-old Elisa Baker pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. North American correspondent Craig McMurtry reports from North Carolina.
The gruesome case of the 10-year-old Australian girl, a cancer survivor with a prosthetic leg and hearing aids, who was murdered, her body dismembered, has horrified North Carolina. Nearly a year after Zahra Baker's disappearance, her American stepmother Elisa Baker shuffled into court, handcuffed and ready to plead. The 43-year-old pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and obstruction of justice. She admitted to physical, verbal and psychological abuse of the child, to hiding and desecrating her body. Police say they're satisfied that her Australian father, Adam Baker, wasn't involved in the death, though one investigator told the court they had a hard time understanding how he couldn't have known that his daughter was missing for 2 weeks. In an emotional statement to the court, Adam Baker accused his wife of destroying his life.
There are no words to explain the hate I have for you.
Zahra Baker's biological mother, Emily Dietrich, called it an act of pure evil.
Zara was pulled apart like some human puzzle and discarded like rubbish for wildlife to graze.
There is still no explanation of how exactly Zahra Baker died. The autopsy report states it was undetermined homicidal violence. Elisa Baker says the 10-year-old had been unwell, that she found her not breathing and tried to resuscitate her. Police admit she wasn't prepared to say anything else.
There's only one person that knows, and she's not talking.
Elisa Baker chose not to speak before sentencing, her lawyer telling the court she was emotionally devastated and sorry. When it was over, Adam Baker sat stunned.
Pretty sad when you get less than 20 years for taking a child's life.
Zahra Baker's family want the 10-year-old's remains transferred to Australia. Craig McMurtry, ABC News, Newton, North Carolina.
All right, guys, you've seen it. Zahra Baker sentenced to second-degree murder, given 14 years. Now, later on down the line in her incarceration, she was issued an additional 10 years because when they were in the trailer, when they were living in the trailer, guys, she was selling prescription medication out of the trailer, namely Oxycontin or Codon or whatever you say it, however you call it, to people. So she was a drug dealer at the same time. She had Zara living with her in the house while Adam worked. Scores of people come into the house while she's selling, you know, illegal over-the-counter medication. I mean, not over-the-counter medication, but, you know, drugstore medication. And she caught a Fed case. They gave her additional 10 years. Now, what's sad about this story, besides the horror that little Zara had, you know, went through, I can't help, you know, think about how she must have felt in the last week of her life. I mean, seriously, she can't go outside, can't make friends. She's forced to be around somebody that hates her. She has to hear Alyssa arguing with Adam and all this other stuff. That wasn't her American dream. And I'm sure it wasn't his. But he's so love-struck and blinded by the ambition of the affairs of his heart, he neglected his own child and opened the door for this monster to really attack her. And that little bit of 20-something years that she's going to serve, I don't think that's justice. Honestly, mother brought over here. Did you hear what the mom said in the impact statement? You dismembered my child and scattered her body around for wildlife to feed off of. Just her saying that is powerful about how she feels and some of the things that are going on in her head. Being a victim, you know, a partial victim of a crime that she wasn't even here for, because remember, the victim was a daughter. When something happens to your children, whether they're hurt or, you know, getting in trouble, a lot of times as a parent, it affects you because you feel as though you wish you could do something, but you can't, especially with men. But I don't feel nothing for Adam, and I keep going back to him. But I mean, it's no way he could be that blinded to problems in his own house. Now, he done went back to Australia. And I'm going to be honest with you. If I was family, namely his brother, he wouldn't be welcome back around me. In fact, we'd have to have it out. Because you chose to take Zara over there. The family told you, hey, she just got her cancer just went into remission. It's not time to move her. Medical's free over here in Australia. You don't have to go to America. Leave Zara here. She's comfortable. She has a life. She's happy. Keyword, happy. Guys, this little girl survived battles that most people don't on a daily basis. Cancer, not once, but twice. In 2012, the skull of Zahra Baker was found. And after it was discovered, medical examiner said she died September 24th of 2010. And the ruling of her death was blunt force trauma. The way police put it together, Zara was asleep in the house early in the morning, and Elisa Baker crept into her room and beat her about the head while she slept with a heavy object. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask you, how hateful is that? This little girl went through a lot of pitfalls in life and still came out with a smile. She still was surviving. And to have a horrible ending like that, it's more than heartbreaking. She only wanted what any other child would want when meeting a new parent in the step-parent role: to be respected, to be loved, and to be cherished. And she couldn't get that. Everything she survived, the one final battle that she couldn't survive, was the affairs of her own father's heart and his selfishness with making a deal with the devil, who's known as Elisa Baker. I'm Steve for another episode of Sinister Intent. Thanks for watching.